The View. I'm Father Jonathan Morris. It is the 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time hour of this show. FoxNews.com, the Strategy Room, and we had one panel that was supposed to be here, and we got rid of them. And instead we put on a few very serious people. With me, Jim Mandrinos, am I pronouncing that well?
Yes, that's perfect.
Jim is a political humorist, and also, I understand, you're doing a web series for FoxNews.com, is that right?
Yep, it's
explain what that is?
FoxNews.com/Team Washington, and it's a talk soup style show where I basically make fun of all the political news.
What's Talk Soup?
Talk Soup is a show on E! Where they just run clips and then do commentary on it, and this show is patterned after that, and it's a whole lot of fun.
Is it better than the E!
I think it's better than the
show,
evening.
Whatever.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot more news involved, so it can be there's a lot more to make fun of that way.
But news is a serious thing, isn't it, Bill? You don't make fun of news. Huh?
Well, we fail miserably on doing just that. We don't really make fun of it. We just discuss it, don't we? And
we do.
Things happen, right? Yes.
We do. Exactly. And Bill Schultz, all of you know, was making reference to his own show.
They don't know, but
which is they do. I do know. We went to a Yankees game together once, and everyone keeps coming up to Bill. Bill was
asking
a star.
For order, asking me for hot dogs. I like to dress like vendors, and we get into the park for that is embarrassing. It was fun. Believe they won, and you pretty much christened the rest of the season. This was the inaugural season.
That was quite honestly, at that moment, it was pretty early in the season. The Yankees were not doing very well.
No, absolutely not. And I'd like to think that you turned
the combination of. There were about 5 or 6 of us there. I think it was the combination of our presence happening. We were sitting in some great seats.
No, we could not have had worse seats in the entire park. And yet they were still at upwards of $20, I believe, maybe even $30. But yeah, they were the last rows in the upper deck.
The last row. Which I would think those are more valuable than the second to the last seat.
I was going to say, at least you said you've been there, right? I mean, there are some very angry people right over the pier that were wishing they were, right over the tier, I should say, that were wishing they were us.
Precisely. And they were probably also angry because you were throwing things behind you.
Just the peanut factor? Well, you could get away with that because there was no one behind us.
But with those peanuts going all the way down?
They might have. We had consumed a lot of beverages in that game, Father. I don't even remember the score. So whatever you're telling me, I'm going to agree with.
Are you sure you were actually at a game?
We could have been at a bar and never made it. I don't know. Yeah, it could have been across the street.
Exactly, with that where they had that video game in front of it. It looks like a Yankees game going on.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
There was the ultimate virtual reality.
It's a beautiful stadium, too.
It is a beautiful stadium. And,
very clean though. That in Citi Field, it's weird walking in there because it's too clean. They got to dirty it up a little bit.
Citi Field as a Mets fan is like the worst stadium ever because there's no Met memorabilia in there. It's all an homage to the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Oh yeah, but the setup's made to look like Ebbets Field.
The Jackie Robinson Rotunda.
Yeah. I never really got that. I mean, it'd be one thing if the Mets were actually based in Brooklyn, but it's a Queens team.
Yeah.
It's just Jackie Robinson.
What's fun, though, about being in New York now that I'm here as of July, I've been here, is that you can root for teams that win.
Yeah, that is that's probably one of the better perks, unless you're an NBA fan. That's a great thing about being in New York.
Well, it's exactly NBA. What is it? Between the Knicks and the Nets, they've played 19 games and they've won 1 game between the two teams.
Look, I did not know it was that bad.
That's bad.
Johnny come lately with this season, but it's like trying to choose between water torture or some other form when it comes to those two. But on the flip side, you're going to get a Super Bowl parade every couple of years. You're going to get a World Series parade every couple of years, although it's been a bit of a drought. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about living in a town that can afford it.
Instead of, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan.
I'm so sorry.
Oh.
And last night, Baltimore beat them to bring them to 1-8.
Yeah.
And what really stinks about it is they cannot beat last year's record of the Detroit Lions, who went 0-16 because they won that first stupid game.
I was going to say, they could at least do that.
It's like a bummer. It's like they're getting closer and closer to that, that standard of absolutely winless season, and they know they cannot do
Just
it.
Miss it. Yeah.
They're going to miss it because they won.
I have a buddy who's a Dolphins fan, and it's just like that. Like, there's a couple of years ago, they flirted with a losing season without one win, and he wanted it to happen because, like, if you're going to do it, go all the way. Like, let's go 0 for 17, as it were.
Oh my! Well. Now that we've taken care of all the important stuff, we're going to make a little bit of a turn. And I want to talk about a story that my guesses has not been talked about on this network today. I could be wrong. I haven't been watching Fox today. But there's a story that fascinates me. It's titled, and this is an AP story, Soldier Mom Refuses Deployment to Care for Her Baby. Okay? Let me read a couple paragraphs to set the stage for the story. An Army cook and single mom may face criminal charges after she skipped her deployment flight to Afghanistan because she said no one was available to care for her infant son while she was overseas. Specialist, what is that, SBC? Specialist?
Yeah, specialist.
Alexis Hutchinson, who's 21 years old, claims she had no choice but to refuse deployment orders because the only family she had to take care of her 10-month-old son, her mother, was overwhelmed by the task, already caring for 3 other relatives with health problems. Her civilian attorney, Rai Sue Sussman, said Monday that one of Hutchinson's superiors told her she would have to deploy anyway and place the child in foster care. For her, it was like I couldn't abandon my child. This is the lawyer who says, for her, it was like...
It was the lawyer got it, the license to the night class, apparently. DeVry's got a liar.
Okay, so the lawyer says, for her, it was like, and then says, I couldn't abandon my child, Sussman said. She was really afraid of what would happen, that if she showed up, they would send her to Afghanistan anyway and put her son with Child Protective Services. I suppose if she showed up, they would, right?
Yeah.
If she showed up at the plane, because we're talking here about her getting on a plane. Yeah. And the lawyer says if she had showed up at the plane, her fear that they would have sent her to Afghanistan. That's a pretty good guess. They would have, right? So I don't know if anybody else who's watching right now has had a similar experience, but I find it fascinating to think that here this only one-parent mother of this child was in the Army, has a child, and is going to be sent over to Afghanistan. What do you guys think?
There has to be some care given to who's deploying, but then again, if you join the Army, you kind of know what you're in for. I can understand both sides of this issue, and that's what makes it so heartbreaking. The choice between doing what's right by your family and doing what's right by the commitment that you've made. Ultimately, she'll pay a very steep price for this. She'll probably be dishonorably discharged. She'll probably face some kind of civil or criminal penalty. Right. But at the end of the day, it's your child. And that's the biggest obligation any person can make.
Is that the biggest obligation, Bill?
I see, that's the thing. I think in her case it is, but the problem with this is, from the military's point of view, I can see why they want to be hard about it, because you're going to have a lot of people that are facing redeployment and say, well, I'm going to get pregnant. Right. And they have no reason other than to avoid serving again. I'm going to knock myself up to get out of doing this, if there is such a thing like, But then you look at stuff like conscientious objection and stuff like that. There are a myriad of other ways the way you can get out of the Army that you would think that if they're as, I don't want to say open-minded, but if they allow things like that, this should be sort of a gimme. I mean, we're talking about another life here. But, I totally see this being abused, or they to go easy on her. I can see
or at least a redeployment here within the States. Someplace where she could be on the base with the child.
That's a good point. Why isn't there a middle ground here? I mean, there has to be. Right. They could definitely use her here in some capacity.
It seems like... when I look at a story like this, I'm always thinking, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Father, I need to talk, what do I do? I'm in this situation.
What advice would you give if she came to you?
This is a classic case, I think, in which civil disobedience, while accepting the consequences of that civil disobedience, is the right thing to do. If it really is the case that there is nobody to take care of this child, right? And putting her into foster care, I think
is a nightmare for the child.
It's not an option. It's simply not an option. Unless you yourself are incapable psychologically, mentally, physically of taking care of a child, then it's the last case scenario, and you should do it. But if you could take care of this child on your own, you can't take off for the year, and go fight in Afghanistan. You simply can't do it. And I think